This is Ian Mombe, your host for the Thoughts Beyond the Bible podcast, the very first podcast of its nature, of its kind, and we have started now. Just to give the prize to the winner who guessed the guest right on this show, please feel free to inbox me on my Facebook page and I will be able to deliver the book to you. And I am joined with my guest today, Dumisani Ncube. I don't know if I've pronounced it right. I was really rehearsing for that. Welcome to my podcast.
The pleasure is mine. Glad to be here, Ian.
Sure.
And congratulations on this podcast.
Thank you.
I love your thinking. I love your reasoning. This is the beginning of a very interesting journey.
Sure.
Yes.
Thank you very much. He's popularly known as the radical entrepreneur, and we're not going to waste much of your time.
Yeah.
The radical entrepreneur. You have been hosting Africa Must Think for a couple of years now. This should be year number 7, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So this is the 7th annual Africa Must Think.
Yes.
Okay. Why Africa Must Think?
How can a continent so rich be so poor?
Okay.
We have so much resource as a continent, yet we are still languishing in poverty. Why should things be this way? How come with all the resource that we have, all the minerals that we have, the arable land that we have, the great weather that we have still remained poor? So, I pose a question and a statement, which is Africa must think. So it is just a challenge to us to say, hey, time has come for us to realize the power that we have. Potential in itself is useless if not utilized. And that is why, if you remember, during our school days, a potential, so if you have potential energy, so potential energy is just stored energy.
Exactly.
It doesn't have value. It only has value if it is converted into something else, like chemical energy, from potential to kinetic energy, from potential to electrical energy. Only then does potential make sense. But potential in itself is useless if it still remains potential. So Africa has so much potential. And the biggest insult that we have received as a continent is the statement that, there is so much potential. What that essentially says is that, you guys are so down to see what you can turn out to be. So, hence Africa must think. So it is time for us to begin thinking.
Great. But just a follow-up question. Then why is the conference held annually for 7 years? What is it exactly that you want to achieve that has not been achieved in 7 years?
All right. It takes a lifetime, really, to change the narrative. It takes a long time to change the direction. I should indicate that our current thinking did not happen by chance. It is something that was built over a very long time. Like, take, for instance, our dependence on the government did not just happen now. It was something that was built many years back. I mean, in the 70s thereabout. That's when the syndrome of depending on the government was properly built. If you look back through history, so Zambia gets independence in 1964. Then 1968, 1969, we had what was called material economic reforms and Mulungushi economic reforms, where in those reforms, the government decided to nationalize the big industries, the big corporations. And it is in that period that we had the big conglomerates called, Findeco, Mindeco, ZCM, a number of these big organizations were then owned by the government. Then for the citizens in that period, entrepreneurship was unheard of because everything was offered by the government. So there was free education, there were meal coupons, everything was offered by the government. So people depended on the government for everything. So Boma must look into this, Boma must look into that. Boma Yanganepo. So as we move in the 1990s, we get into the free market economy where it's pro-capitalist, where now business comes in and people can enterprise and whatnot. Our reasoning has still remained pro-communist or pro-socialist, where we are still looking at the government for everything. So this has been built over a very long period of time. So if there is anything to be changed, then the change would take a long period of time. And in a similar way, we have always believed that for one to succeed, you need to get to school, put in the best, get to university, get your degree, then you get a job. Then from the job, you can then succeed in your career, retire, and we were taught that all through. So to change now and begin telling people that for you to succeed, you need to enterprise is something which is alien to the people. So if you are to change the whole thinking from employment to entrepreneurship, it won't happen instantly. So the efforts being done by Africa Must Think are meant to begin or to continue reiterating the point that, listen up, we need to begin thinking of entrepreneurship. We need to begin thinking of enterprising. And it won't happen in 1 year. And that's why we've continued this fight, and it has taken us 6 and now 7 years of fighting the same battle, that entrepreneurship is the way to go.
You started your entrepreneurship journey at a very young age, let's say 17, if I'm not mistaken, and you are above 30 now. At what point did you have a clear cut that you are now a seasoned entrepreneur?
Okay, Ish, I don't seem to have found myself in that space where I can say I am a seasoned entrepreneur.
You call yourself a radical entrepreneur.
I still feel there is so much more to do. There is so much more to learn. I've made many mistakes. And I feel, because sometimes people can see the glamour, the Range Rovers, and, you live in this kind of place and whatnot. So sometimes they might think that, the guy must have made it. But to me, I still feel there's so much more that I can do. There's so much more that I can achieve. And I feel inadequate because of the mistakes that I experienced firsthand. There are many things that I've done that I felt I shouldn't have done that. So on account of that, I still doubt myself and keep thinking, I think there's so much more that I could do better. I think I can improve better. But to answer your question, of course, I'm way above average in that space. Okay. But the point that I began realizing that I think I can make a great entrepreneur was actually way back when I was in secondary school, when selling pamphlets. With those little profits, they just made me realize that money is good, actually. Profit is good. And it's nice to have money. I grew a very good relationship with money. And that relationship has been one of mutual respect. I respect money, and money seems to like me. So I think from then on, we have grown together. Okay. And so if I'm to point back where I felt entrepreneurship is the way to go, it was at that point. Because it was at that point that I then decided that this is something that I would wish to do for the rest of my life. And as I went through academic journey, became an accountant, did my master's degree and whatnot, I have never searched for employment because I interacted with entrepreneurship at a very young age, and I felt profit was good and was interesting. And the turning point that then cemented everything was, so for those that may have no idea, so from the pamphlets, then opened a kiosk at the village, then, I began trading in gods. Then from then on, when I got done with my secondary education when I was about 17, when I went out to import things from Botswana at Francistown as a teenager, that thing of traveling out of the country made me feel so good. And at that point, I even started calling myself an international businessman. Well, of course, I was actually crossing the border. So I felt it. At that point, it felt so great. Then the other point that even cemented more was when I afforded to buy the first truck, the Mercedes-Benz Artego, when I was 22, turning 23. At that point, I felt I had made it. And at that point, it was very clear. Me and employment, we may never be together unless otherwise. At that point, it just became clear, and I felt so good and I felt so nice. So, yeah.
Was your entrepreneurship journey a strategy, or it was a scenario where you just want to try out things and see what works?
I think my entrepreneurship journey, initially, it was not meant that I would really wish to be an entrepreneur. Okay. Yes, it was circumstantial. So, just like any other kid, your dream is to be an engineer, an accountant, a doctor, especially pilot. I think those are things that we dream of. Back then, entrepreneurship was not something that you could stand and say, no, I want to be a business person. You'll be seen not to be serious with life, and you'll be seen not to be serious with your dreams. So the dreams that we are seen to be serious are those that pertained to an engineer, a doctor, and I was one such person. So when I got to secondary, I started out grade 8, then I was introduced to a course called technical drawing. Then I realized, TD, yes. I realized that I was extremely good at it. And
makes the two of us.
Is it?
Yeah.
I was very good at that subject. I still look back and say, I hope I did not miss out something. You see how you'd have, so for those that have no idea, so technical drawing is where you'd design houses or drawings and what. It's something very, very interesting. And you'd need certain equipment like T-squares,
board.
Yes, the board, of
and
course.
You always use big papers. Yeah.
Those big papers. But did you know that without using the normal T-squares and whatnot, I would use a single 30 centimeter rule, which is not the standard, to use there. Mm-hmm. I would draw proper lines, design, and everything on point without proper, tools to use. So I felt I would be an engineer. And for me, it was very clear. And actually, the first money I made was when I did my working class. Then I would do the work for my colleagues in technical drawing. Okay. Yeah, so then they would pay me a little something. Then I would have break. So it was clear that I would be an engineer. But from those little monies that I would charge, I fell in love with money. Then later on, selling pamphlets. At that point, it was like, I think profit seems to be a very interesting thing. It was at that point that I began entertaining entrepreneurship. Because remember, at Matero Boys, I joined the school from a very humble background. So the little monies I would make, it was a way of survival. But in the process, I fell in love with money and the idea of enterprising. So was it a plan that I would be an entrepreneur? No. It was after I'd made a bit of money that I realized that, no, this is the way to go. And that's how I settled into the whole business thing.
How did you skyrocket to a place where you could call yourself the radical entrepreneur, bearing in mind that the little monies you made were a way of making ends meet? And I want to believe this is a case for most entrepreneurs today. You make your money, it's hand to mouth. So how did you then grow your business to something, let's say from pamphlets to goats, from goats to Botswana, from Botswana to a truck? A truck is very expensive. How did you get to that point?
Okay.
Bearing in mind you had costs to deal with.
Okay, interesting. I think for me, the journey was just incremental. So it is quite difficult to truly tell that this was the actual point when things completely jumped. I'm searching for a time where when atoms are moving, then it mixes. It's a leap. Okay, if I remember, I'll share it. Yeah, so
could we call it luck?
So that leap really didn't take off. Of course, there's something that seemed like a leap. So from the little monies made from the pamphlets, from the little monies made from a kiosk, from the little monies made from trading in goats, then getting into importing things, from the little monies made from that, which eventually were lost in a loss that I made in South Africa. Then we started a software company with 2 other friends. So we are the 3 of us, and we called the company Glad Tidings Software Limited. So we are going around schools selling, that software package, and it was 3,500 kwacha. So the real jump was after 2 years plus of running around with that software arrangement, that then we had a province that decided to buy. A number of schools decided to buy at once. To me, that was the quantum leap. I think that's the word I was searching for. That was the quantum leap. That was the moment when things completely changed. Because at that point, we sold in one day and life changed from that sale that we made in that one day. And from that training that we made in that one day, I was able to buy my first car, move in independently, and did so much from that engagement. So I think for me, that was the real change. I think the rest has just been incremental. But for me, the point I could look back and say, we did a quantum leap was that point using the software a company.
Okay, if you ask me, using the word quantum sounds very small to call it a leap, quantum leap, because the change was really drastic from selling softwares in school to buying your first car, buying your truck. Maybe the question I would have is, I think this is a question that most people have actually asked. We live in a very corrupt country. Connection, corruption, commitment. What really gave the quantum leap?
Okay.
Substance.
All right, great. Well, corruption is there. We can't run away from that. Connections are needed. We can't run away from that. But one thing that we don't pay attention to is sometimes, the value and the refinement of what you're putting on the table. Okay. It's what truly opens better and bigger doors. So instead of just looking at connections, just looking at corruption, if you are very good at something, you are extremely great at something, you may not need corruption actually to get business. Let me give an example. Since I organize Africa Must Think, so I tend to speak. And there's a charge attached to me, when I'm invited to speak, especially for those corporate events. And my charge is 75,000 kwacha. Now notice, unless things change, but at the moment, I'm the most expensive speaker in Zambia. That's a fact. And if you looked at the competition in the speaking space, you realize that I'm not just the most expensive, I am by far the most expensive. Now not. At that point, if you are to invite a speaker in the space of entrepreneurship, there'll be questions of, so assume you work for an organization that wants a speaker. Then one comes in and say, no, you can choose this guy or maybe that guy and whatnot. If they are not as good as myself, corruption won't work. I have been in spaces where they say, in fact, request for a discount. They say, so for me, it is standard. For 40 minutes address, that is 75,000 kwacha. Maybe the best I can do, I can add 5 more minutes so that we make it 45 minutes at the same 75. What am I putting across? At that point, you don't need corruption. And when I stand, I'll say, listen, this is what you're getting. You won't get this anywhere else. This is what I'm offering you. That is the value I'm putting on the table. So because of the value being put on the table, competition becomes secondary. So if you are very good at what you do, even the team that is doing the production of this podcast, if they are extremely good at what they are doing, there's a level where corruption won't just work because they are good at what they are doing. What brings about corruption is the fact that you are, I don't want to say mediocre, but you are in the pool of so many in terms of output and the value that you put on the table. That breeds corruption because then you are competing with others. But if you are exceptionally good, you don't need corruption. You don't need that. And this is the question of, in fact, even sponsorship. For the Africa Must Think as an example, you would have, people that would come in and sponsor, thanks, like to the bank that came in, Standard Chartered Bank, 2.5 million to sponsor an event, unprecedented. It is because of the value offered on the table. Even as we sit to discuss, what you're saying is that this is the biggest conference, not just in Zambia, not just in Africa, but in the entire world. So you are putting something on the table that can't be compared with others. I don't know if that makes sense. So you need to be extreme, thrive to become so great, such that you become corruption proof.
I get you. Though my mind is forcing me to think that corruption could be there, but if you're good enough, it won't show.
Okay. I see what you mean. I see what you mean. To say corruption could be there, but if you're good enough, it won't show. Of course, there are certain crazy sports where, people are just corrupt and their reasoning is just confused. Whether you are good or not, for them, they're just looking at what will enter their pockets.
Exactly.
There are those cases. But I can tell you for a fact that there are many other cases that I have witnessed where you give no one anything, but simply because you are key, you are extremely good at what you do, doors will just open. There comes a point where, people don't even want to compete with you because you are just good. And this is what I'll challenge many of us to say, let us be extremely good at our craft to a point that you make competition irrelevant. Like, competition is there, but it is just irrelevant.
Okay.
Yes.
Back to why Africa must think. What has been your measure of impact in the last 7 years?
Okay. I know what is interesting over the years. Now we've had people that have attended, and I shouldn't get this, that there are moments where, because of the pressure that comes with the conference, the talk that comes with the conference, the time that is involved in putting up the conference and all these pieces, I've had a couple of times I would say, no, do you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I think for me, what I just had was the last. And sometimes, you'd even find yourself in negatives, financially. So when you look back, you're like, no, I think let me save myself the trouble and let me not engage in this. And that was the case actually at the beginning of this year. What made me rethink the idea of wanting to get back into the whole Africa Must Think again was when one came in, his name is Cyril. So he comes in and says, you see, from the US, I came in 2021. I did ask around to say, who are the people making an impact in Zambia? Then your name came up. I tried making an appointment to meet you. I failed. The only time I got closer to you was at last year's conference where I got the VIP ticket and I was in the same place where you were. And that time we are discussing this year now. So it was our first meeting. And then he says, you have an impact that you have no idea of. I was impacted, I've been following what you do, and you've... So he said all these great things.
And he's a great man himself.
And he's a great man himself. And not just him, many others who've just come in and said, listen up, you've impacted my life this way, you've pushed me this way. In fact, on today is Thursday, some 2-3 days ago, a lady came in with a check of 50,000 and said, you have impacted my business so much. And for this year's Africa Must Think, just as well of appreciating, I'm appreciating with the 50,000 just to sponsor others so that they could feel what I've felt and the impact that I've gotten. Now, that in itself gets to be a reminder to me that indeed, maybe I could be changing lives. Indeed, maybe I could be impacting others positively. So that is what keeps me going. And that is what is pushing me to become a bigger and better in as far as Africa Must Think is concerned. So there is that impact. But as to measure how many people, how many businesses, and it is quite difficult because we have hit a point where we are attracting thousands. So you have 30,000 people in the audience, and it is sometimes difficult to really measure how they are progressing. But those that we have had an impact with or an interaction with, it has shown that indeed there is impact being made. And little things that could also be seen. Just look at the growth. Year number 1, we had a conference at Mulungushi International Conference Center, a very small hall, which seats maximum 500 people. And that is where we had. So that was in 2018. 2019, we moved from that small hall. We moved into the main hall at Mulungushi, and we did not feel it. So it went halfway. So we did not feel the ground and we did not feel the top. That was 2019. 2020, we got back to Mulungushi, the same big hall, and we filled it to capacity, and there was a stampede. Then we moved from there, go to 2021, where we then moved to the stadium because there was no venue that could handle us. We had over 10,129. From then on, 2022, we had 13,400. Then 2023, we had 33,000 people attend. That in itself is an indication that people are being impacted, because something that is not adding value, it can't grow. It will not grow, and it cannot be sustained. And today I can tell you for a fact that the stadium is technically full. We are 7 days to the event. The stadium is full. So what am I putting across? This thing has been growing, and the numbers seem to indicate that there is some value being felt on the ground.
Your own words. Something that has value cannot grow. Is the value going to your pocket? Is the value for the people?
Great. That's a very interesting question. So is the value for the people? I think for me the most important aspect is the value being for the people. But of course there's a notion that no. The brother must be minting.
Why the charge?
Why the charge? You see, I've done interesting things. 2022, I organized an event. So after Africa Must Think, I decided then to organize an event at Mulungushi, because there was so much talk about, you charge. I had a free event at Mulungushi. Said, please feel free. It has been paid for. The ambience, great space, great everything. Just come. All you need to do is register on this link, come through and be part of this gathering. It's free. This time around, we are not charging. But guess what? The attendance I got in the free event, after all the advertising, was the lowest attendance that I've ever had. What does that indicate? That indicates that the people who attend the event don't want to attend a free event. Then those who are complaining that, no, we need a free event, either way, even if it is free, they don't still come. So I think it put me in a very interesting space. Then I realized that it is not an issue of the charge. It is an issue of people that value the event. Then those that value knowledge would never wish to attend a free event. So I have no choice but to then have a paid-for event. But what we've also done, for those that genuinely want to attend and do not have the financial muscle, because we can't rule that out, there are such people. But for such, what we've also done is that there are a number of people that have believed in the cause, and they're coming in to sponsor some of those. I can give an example. So yesterday, Eden University just comes in and says, here's a 60,000. We want to get some tickets for those that may not afford. The other day, the same 50,000, the lady who brought a 50,000, for a classic deco Jita. Is it classic Jita deco? Standard Chartered Bank, who've come in and pumped in millions, actually, towards the event. All those are indications that those that truly want to attend and they can't afford, they are covered in a way. But we can't make it a free event.
Your name has grown massively because of the Africa Must Think conference. And I understand you are also the CEO for DL and Technologies. Yeah. Between the two brands, which one is bigger?
Okay, so in terms of the public eye, I would say Africa Must Think is more known by the public, possibly by far, because what we are offering is to the public. So people hear of Africa Must Think and, buy your tickets and, so that is known. And, the controversy that also comes with it, that is known. But DLN Technologies, in terms of the financial muscle, it might interest you to note that all the Africa Must Thinks, with the exception of the 2021, was left a surplus, 2021, and the one that might leave a surplus is 2024. But all the other ones have been sponsored by DLN Technologies. It is not straightforward to have a surplus from an event. It is not. Without sponsors, that I can say, it is almost impossible to have a surplus. So all these years, it has been sponsored by DON Technologies. And in terms of financial muscle, we can't really compare the two. Because DON Technologies is what puts food on the table. It is what makes me develop financially and otherwise. So the real company is DON Technologies. It is what has built all that I supposedly own.
Has it ridden on the firm for the radical entrepreneur?
Well, there is some impact in that there are people that you'd get into an office and they're like, oh, Dumisani, so what are you here for? And you say, no, we've come here because we do A, B, C, D, so we supply machines that do what? Oh, great. Then because of the name, people seem to have a softer spot. Indeed, yes, that has played a part. And sometimes people just believe in your capacity to offer because you're a known person and they can risk, engaging you. That, it has played a part. But also vice versa. I couldn't stand as a radical entrepreneur without pointing at DON Technologies, because then I'm an entrepreneur doing what? What have I done? What have I achieved? And it might interest you to note that long before I even got in public space, long before I did that, I was a reasonably successful entrepreneur. Because I got in public space maybe when I was 25, thereabout, when I was 25, maybe turning 26, thereabout. But I had my first, house when I was 22, 23. In fact, even here where we are, the office premises, this is something that I built when I was 22, 23. So I achieved so much more. The time I was 24, 25, I was driving the latest Ford Ranger at the time. And it was a showroom vehicle. Then, so I was a successful entrepreneur then. And actually, thinking of it, and I've never shared this, maybe let me even say it. At some point, I was even thinking that the whole speaking thing and whatnot, it just derailed me in a way, because it would consume my time, it would consume my resources, it would consume so much from me, the energy and everything else. At some point, I was even thinking that maybe I could have even achieved bigger and better things. What makes me think so is 2016, in the space of the business that we're in, we were about number 2 in the niche that we are in. So we are about number 2. Then fast forward, the company that was number 3, so there was number 1, distant number 2, ourselves. Then the number 3 was like a distant number 3. Then after years, I meet the CFO for that company that was number 3. Then the man is telling me that they were having a turnover that was in hundreds of millions. Then I think to myself, wait, this whole speaking thing, I think just derailed me, because these guys were not anywhere close to us. And at the pace I was moving at, it was practically impossible for those guys to catch up with us. So I began feeling, bad that, I have derailed, I derailed. Though people are still celebrating, but I could tell that I could have been way better. But the thing that has comforted me is 2 or 3 fold. So number 1, the fact that I've impacted other lives, it compensates for some money that I could have achieved. The fact that other people's have gotten better, other people's lives have gotten better. Then number 2, just the thought as well that, now my growth, like for this year, has been extremely exponential at the tech business, because, whichever office you get to, everyone knows you. People trust you. People want to deal with you. People are willing to risk it for you. So because of that, I think I'm seeing the company getting bigger and better. I think we are going to buy back time.
Great. So going forward, what should people expect from you to do differently? Will the Africa Must Think conference just come annually, and will it bring the same thing on the table. What should people expect from you going forward?
All right, great. So Africa must think going forward. The starting point, I should indicate that the angle that I've been concentrating on has been an angle in line with enlightening people, letting people get to know more, because I totally understand that for one to succeed, we need knowledge, and this is the aspect that I've been working on. Of course, there are other aspects that people would say, no, you need financial capital, you need this and that, but truly, if you have the knowledge, if you have the understanding, finances are truly secondary, because I've seen people who would get money, financial muscle, but still fail in entrepreneurship. I've seen people who would get pension, fail, get their savings, invest, fail, get a loan, put in a business, fail, get an inheritance, here is the money, fail. The issue is not about finances. The issue is about intellectual capital. And this is what I've been hammering on and trying to ignite our thinking. So, having pushed this agenda for a number of years, what I'm looking at beginning next year, I'm looking at the possibility of then introducing ways of funding businesses. But this should only happen to those that have truly shown that they have a proper understanding. The reason why the issue of funding businesses has not done so well all through history, we've had empowerment funds from the Ministry of Youth, we've had empowerment funds from CEC, and many empowerment funds. People get these funds and they still fail flat out because the reasoning and the thinking is not refined. So beginning next year, we want to come in and get a little more practical. Now, having done the thinking, we want to get to the ground now and see how we can impact our people down there.
One other question I didn't ask you. There was a time you brought about a challenge of getting to, is it 2 million kwacha? Is it 1 million kwacha?
Yeah, 3 million actually.
3 million kwacha. And what was the capital starting with?
Oh, it was 20.
20,000, getting to 3 million kwacha.
Mm-hmm.
How did the challenge go? Did you get to 3 million? And did you replicate that in somebody else?
Okay, great. So when the challenge started, I had to cancel it, and there was a reason to that. So when I started the challenge, I wanted to prove to the public that you can start from scratch and build something big from a very small capital, provided you know what you're doing. But the challenge that I then had from the public was that people then came in, no. The challenge is that this business that you want to start, you are the one involved. So people know you, so they'll buy because of you. No. The challenge here is that you already have, so there was all that. In fact, there was a backlash. So then I realized that, what I'm trying to prove won't make sense because people feel I'll still make it regardless. And
were they right?
Reasons. No, well, I was going to make it. No doubt. I was going to make it.
But were they right? Telling you will make it because it's you.
Well, there's some truth to that, but here's the thing. Every person has a vantage point, and your failure to take advantage of your vantage point is not the fault of anybody else except yourself. So if you don't realize your vantage point, the challenge then is with yourself. So if there is anything to be done, you need to position yourself and you need to position your vantage point. So everyone has a vantage point. So it could be yourself. Maybe your vantage point is your looks. That in itself is the vantage point. But people don't realize that looks could be a vantage point. So it could be that you're a very prayerful person at church and people respect you as a prayer warrior. That is a vantage point too, because if you utilize that, people would entrust you with business from your church. It could be that your vantage point is that your family is well connected. People fail to see their vantage points, but they are so quick to see the vantage points of others. There are people who are educated, well-spoken and whatnot, who have that vantage point, but they fail to realize that. So now people were poking my vantage point as if I'm the only one with advantages, and they poke them so hard. Then I realized that, what I'm trying to achieve won't make sense because people will still think, even if we make it, it's like, no, this is where we are and whatnot. They'll still stand and say, no, he made it because it is him, because no, he's known and whatnot, and it is not every other person. But listen, that is my advantage. The question is that, have you identified your advantage? But because of the back and forth, the backlash and whatnot, I decided that it was taking away energy from me than it was an exciting adventure to do.
If you had to still continue and prove that point, would you replicate that idea in somebody who's not you, to start from 20,000 kwacha to 3 million kwacha?
It is possible.
Can you do it?
Well, because the question is, for the tech business, question is, how much did I start with? Because the amounts are not very different from the figure that you're talking about. And then I wasn't even known. There was nothing, absolutely nothing, except this guy who believes that he can do it. Then that 3 million that you're talking about, isn't that a monthly arrangement or something? If not less. So I have done it. I can replicate it. Now it even makes it a lot more easier. You know, knowledge is power. And knowledge is power. I have seen it. If you know what you're doing and you know your positioning, it is easy. Money is not difficult. Money runs by the rules. It has nothing to do with praying. It has nothing to do with money runs by the rules. And if you understand those rules, you can replicate and you can multiply. And I'll challenge you, just for you to, this is your first episode.
Yeah.
Next year, maybe just for the fun of it, I'll put a challenge on camera.
Okay.
Yeah, for the sake of this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm just dreaming. I'm thinking of doing a big. How about if I did a massive house, possibly the biggest, or one of the biggest in Zambia?
Okay.
In the next. Okay. I'll do it in 5 months.
Guys, there you have it.
The
5
podcast,
months.
5 months from today.
Uh-huh.
Come, we'll need an interview at my house. You'll be the first one. And that house, I'll start building it. Okay, maybe let me start two weeks from today. Yeah.
There you have it.
Yeah.
2 weeks from today. And we'll be hosting this podcast at Dumisani's new house in 5 months.
That's the thing. That's the thing. What am I putting across with that? It is just an indication that you can dare to dream. Do I have the money to build that multi-million house right now? I don't have it. Do I have that kind of money in the account? I don't have it. But I have declared that in 5 months, I'll be living in a double-story, powerful mansion. One of the biggest in this country. I'm saying it live. Why? I'm a firm believer in daring. The same way that I stood one time and I said, we want to have a conference in the stadium. People said, no, you can't have a conference in the stadium. Where are people going to sit? I said, where people sit when watching soccer? They said, no, people can't sit there. There's a sun there. I said, listen, we are going to have it there. They said, that's impossible. But you know what? We have done it. So I just love the fun of daring to do things that are impossible. But of course, now another one will still come here and say, no, but obviously he has the potential to have the money. So people find ways of poking what you... But no, this is, you know, in fact, next year, another dare. So we are filling the stadium this year. Mm-hmm. Next year's Africa Must Think. Mm-hmm. I want to have a country tour. And in that country tour, I want to physically, personally speak to a total of 1 million Zambians. Physical, so we'll be counting. Lusaka, you've spoken to 50,000 or 60,000 or 80,000 in Africa Must Think. Copper Belt at this venue, in Quito, we'll add it up. I want to speak to 1 million. That sounds crazy. That sounds crazy. Even an election campaign, you don't hit such numbers. But I want to do it, just for the fun of it. Do you know why I want to do it? I will only live once. After this, Ian, I'm a dead guy. There will never be me. So if there is anything I can achieve in this time, I have between now and my death. But why not do impossible things? Things that are crazy, things that People can't believe things that I can look back and say, okay, this was a crazy thing to do. I want to do those things. I want to dare. I want to dream. And dreaming is free. I mean, I am already born. Why not be great?
I like that quote. This question, what sets you apart from every other speaker out there? Can you say that you are above average of every speaker in terms of intellectual?
Well, I wouldn't say so. I've actually listened to Zambians who speak way better than me. I must acknowledge, way better than me. Speaking, way better than me. I have interacted with fellow Zambians who are possibly way more intelligent than myself. And interestingly, I've interacted too with fellow Zambians who speak, who may possibly be way richer than me. So I'm not saying I'm the richest. I'm not saying I'm the most fluent in speech. And I'm not saying I'm the most intelligent. But you know what? I'm just that guy who dreams. And I just want to do crazy things. I just want to do things that are deemed impossible. That's just what I want to do. Even the same charge that I was telling you about, the 75,000. You know what? I woke up one day. There's nothing that proved that my worthy to charge for a speaking engagement is 75,000. There was nothing like that. In fact, I was even speaking for free. I just woke up one day and said, you know what? I want to be the most expensive speaker in Zambia. So from today, for me to speak, 75. In fact, I even made an announcement. So for me to speak, 75. And it was just a dream. Nothing that I can prove to say this is where the 75 is coming from, this is the value attached. I just dreamt. And because of that, for the fun of it, guess what? It was just 2 weeks later, the first organization paid how much? 75. So I've just realized that actually, whatever I dream, I can achieve it. So no wonder I'm even putting crazy dreams, like the same ones that I was just sharing here. I don't know. I've just realized that what I dream can come to pass. Why not dream? Even yourself, Ian. You see this podcast? This is the first episode. You can make a decision today and declare to say, do you know what? This will be the biggest in Zambia. I'm just giving it 6 months, even put a time frame, because you can't just dream without a time frame. So put a time frame to say 9 months. This will be the biggest. But you know why you are scared of declaring that? You are scared because what if it doesn't happen?
Exactly.
But you know what? Me, I'm not scared. When I declare, I fight to achieve it. I will push until I achieve it. So I just dare.
I can call you the lion. You know why? Because the lion is the king of the jungle. It's not the fastest. It's not the strongest. It's not the bravest. But it is the king.
Oh, interesting.
On a lighter note, actually. On a lighter note, Africa must marry. What is your take on that?
Oh, yes. No, marrying, I will marry.
It's getting late.
No,
Probably I have time, not you.
Okay. You know that question. Yeah, I think something ought to be done. I just had an assignment. I wanted Africa to think.
Then marry.
Now that Africa is thinking, then now I can marry. But very soon, and I can assure you, in this lifetime, we shall marry.
Great.
Yes.
Last question. Are you ready? Africa must think. 2024.
No, we are ready. Africa must think 2024. We are ready. Bring it on. No, we have been ready. We have been ready. I mean, we've done this many times. And in fact, I was even telling you, okay, sometimes I laugh when I look at some of these dreams that I have. I was telling you that the stadium is full. Do you know what? It is not yet full with numbers yet. But in my head, it is full.
It's full.
It's already full. I see it, and what I'm seeing as well is that it will be impactful. Those that will attend will certainly be impacted in a very positive way. What I'm seeing too is that it will be very interesting. It will be fun-filled. People have a great time there. I am seeing that. And in terms of preparations, we are doing the best that we can. This is the first time that we are preparing for an event and we are sitting, cash before we even do everything else. We have a 5 million for an event. I think, to me, this is the best because then we have the muscle. We have the financial muscle. I mean, we can do billboards. We have over 40 billboards across Lusaka only. So I think, to me, that is just an indication that we are ready. We have what it takes to do it. And my thinking is that if I don't do it, and if we don't do it, no one else will be able to do it. So are we ready? We are getting there, and I feel we are ready. And I would encourage you to come through and be part of this exceptional event. We are putting in the best that we can, and we'll put in the best that we can.
We'll surely be there. We'll surely be there. There you have it, folks. This was your Thoughts Beyond the Bible podcast. To those of you, wherever you are watching from this podcast, this is a podcast that comes to you with enlightening information, something that you have not had before. You see most podcasts around speaking about women, things and whatnot. But here we learn. Here we have fresh ideas. Here we have innovative ideas. And we hope to grow to one of the biggest podcasts Zambia has ever seen, just like Dumisani has put it. Your last words as we close.
Why are you scared? That's the problem. In fact,
I am not going to give a timeline to this, but it will be.
What is difficult with you saying it will be the biggest?
It will be the biggest.
No, you are doubting. That's where the problem is. And you see, you are not the only one with that challenge.
Okay.
Most Zambians are scared of declaring. Now, here is what I'll put across. Me, I am not scared of declaring. The things I have achieved, I declared them. Then I fought to have them. Simple thing. What has made me realize, and I wish to end on this note, what has made me realize is that, so one time we were playing with wire cars, at the village, make, I don't know if you've ever had that.
Yeah,
toys,
I have.
like you'd bend wires.
Very resourceful, actually, if you ask me.
Yes. So one time we were having a conversation with my peers. So we were the three of us. So one said, I would wish to be a truck driver and, drive this truck with 32 tires, because we used to count tires. And being at the village, the people who are driving trucks were an inspiration to us. Yeah. Driver for trucks in Lusaka. Those were our heroes. And we had a certain uncle who used to work for Sebo Transport. And he was our hero at the village. So we knew the number of tires and whatnot. So this guy said, I want to drive a truck, 32 tires and what. Then the other one responded and said, you see, me, I don't want to drive trucks. I want to drive an Isuzu Trooper. I think, yes, Isuzu Trooper. Why Trooper? Because the neighboring farm was called Christian Voice, and the general manager was driving a vehicle called Trooper. So it was a respected brand to us, young ones. So I'll be driving an Isuzu Trooper, just driving the boss, so that when I drop the boss, the Trooper remains mine. So then myself, I said, listen, you are saying driving your boss. Why not be the boss so that you are driven instead of you just driving? Then the guy who had talked of trucks, I said, listen, why dream of driving trucks? Why not own the same trucks and have them and employ drivers to drive your trucks? So it was just a thought. It was just a dream. Then the guy said, when you are boasting, you boast too much. Fast forward, it was just a dream. And not too long from that dream, I owned trucks at a very young age. Why? I declared, and I believed I can do it. And I achieved it at a way younger age than an average Zambian would ever achieve. So in a similar way, all the little things that I have done, it has come from daring. So I challenge everyone. There is that dream that you had as a young person. Just dare to dream. It is possible to achieve. Don't look down upon yourself. This life that we have is not a rehearsal. This is it. You will never live again. What you are waiting for you is just to die. Why not achieve impossible things, exceptional things, so that your name can be written in the history books that at one time there was this lady, there was this guy, he did this in such a time. You can do that. Dare to dream. So I want you to tell your people that your podcast will be the biggest.
All right, guys, I have been challenged and I will take up the challenge. Since he has given a challenge of building a house, one of the biggest house in Zambia in the next 5 months, and we will shoot the podcast there. So with that said, I also dare you that I'm daring myself actually that this podcast will be the biggest podcast in terms of knowledge in Zambia.
No, you are running away.
What am I running away from?
You who are watching, and to think that this guy, he's putting it now.
What am I running away?
Say it will be the biggest.
It will be the biggest. Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing why I'm saying in terms of knowledge. Because you have a number of podcasts around the world that are dealing with knowledge. But I can tell you that there are more, sorry to use these words, there are more stupid podcasts being followed than knowledge podcasts.
I know.
So even if I am the biggest in Zambia, I will be the smallest in the world.
No, we are,
so
not saying in the world, Zambia.
Yes, here in Zambia, I will be the biggest.
Okay, fine.
I will be the biggest here in Zambia.
But I had to convince you.
But
now listen, just there. I know what you're justifying.
Okay.
Your justification is no knowledge. People don't follow knowledge. They love nonsense. Listen, Africa must think it's not an entertainment event. It's a learning event. And you know what? It is the biggest in Zambia. Not just in Zambia. Now, it will get to be the biggest in Africa. There is no event, no entertainment event that will have the numbers that we'll be having next week. Not a single one in Zambia.
That's another challenge. That's another challenge.
But it's a knowledge thing. It's about personal development. But even with entertainment events, they can't compare with Africa Must Think. Call anybody, and I'm saying it on camera, call any event organizer who has organized numbers bigger than us in Zambia. Oh, in fact, not this year, in the history of this country. What am I putting across? It matters less. Whether it's entertainment, it's knowledge, it's what? Dare to dream. So my closing words are, dare to dream.
We have a lion in the house, and I still call him the lion because he's very brave. We might not be brave as you. We could be leopards. Strong, we could swim, we could climb trees, but probably not the lion. But we are still daring that we will be the biggest podcast in Zambia. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for watching. For wherever you're watching from, I will attach links in the description for where you can follow Mr. Dumisani, the radical entrepreneur. Please be sure to grab your tickets so that you be part of this really great Awakening Africa Must Think conference. Also, to the person who won the book, please reach out to me and I will be able to sign this copy and share it to you. Those that have not gotten yet the Thoughts Beyond the Bible book, please be sure also to grab a copy. You can also grab your copy on Amazon Kindle. I will put the link in the description as well. Mr. Dumisani, thank you for coming. It's been my honor and pleasure to have you.
The pleasure is mine.
All the
dare
best.
To dream.
I will dare to dream.
Nice.
All the best in the Africa Must Think, and thank you very much. Please like, subscribe, and share. See you next time.